Ano ba? Fill time, CV na!
Golden arrow up in Haleiwa. I kinda like it, mix of wine with some Filipina. We got some margarita. No need to prove this, your place is where my shoe fits.
My name is Chameleon. I'm a hip hop artist hailing out of Las Vegas by way of Waipahu, Hawaii. I've been doing this MC thing like for approximately like 2 decades. Started out like freestyling, into battle raps, then started to record and make music in that sense. But I love doing it. Both my mom and dad, they're from Cavite. So I'm a Caviteño, by blood. My dad is from Pasangkawayan Dos, and then my mom is from Diernal Trias. Proud for where I'm from. I mean, definitely, like grass-rooted, hard workers. Like my dad was a farmer, my mom was a teacher, instilled a lot of like good morals to me. And like, I mean, it may not be the path of where they wanted me to be.
But I'd rather cook something else just to stack up my bricks. I could have followed EDM and after Papa Molly, but I'd rather rock a party.
But definitely like, shaped me as a man who I am today. I mean, it all started like when I was just a kid and my cousin would just like play like MTV raps on TV, and I was intrigued of one song from Run DMC, Walk This Way. And it was crazy because they took rock samples and made it into like something so different with like rhythmic poetry, you might say. So that kind of intrigued me, and I was already like getting into poetry when I was a kid. That's how it all started. One of the prominent like events in my life that kind of like was a turning point, or like how my path came to be becoming a Filipino hip hop artist, was touring with Bamboo and Gio of Blue Scholars, like doing an inner island tour back in Hawaii. It definitely like opened my eyes. Like I was always definitely like proud of my ethnicity and being proud of being Filipino, but being very conscious and being very outspoken and using music as a medium to kind of translate that and just kind of convey it to people to be like, hey, I am Filipino, this is like my story, and I feel like people can relate to that. So that was kind of like that tipping point. Balisang 29 was like created, and it was a funny story. It was because my boy Spell, homie from Light Sleepers, he does like dope graphic art. He's been doing all my designs and logos, and I was already working with Bxmbz, like shout out for Bxmbz, like, for even jumping on this project with me and, pushing it through. But we were thinking about like a certain name, like for us, and not just say Chameleon and Bxmbz. And my boy threw out ideas of like using like a Filipino like label or Filipino like connotation to the project. So he said like Balisang 29, and I'm like, or 29, and I was like, why Balisang 29? And he said that with the Balisang blade, it's a very significant weapon that Filipinos used, as a way of like self-defense and attacks and whatnot. And I kind of played off of the 29 too, because 29 inches is the longest blade of what a Balisang is created or made, right? I used the whole Balisang as like a reference or like a description of the style that we have, like how we flip lyrics, like how a Balisang blade, like is manipulated. And the blade of the sharpness is that like me and Bxmbz, like iron sharpens iron. So like that's the whole theory of the whole Balisang name. And then the 29, the 2, meaning me and Bxmbz is both Filipino artists. And 9 represents the 9th island, which is a reference to Las Vegas because of a lot of Hawaii, residents and whatnot. And then we just combine it together, and now it's like Balisang 29. To be quite honest, I mean, I moved to Vegas for like, some job opportunities. There was some life things that were happening at that point. Never thought in a million years that I would be like, chilling in Vegas and considering this place home. But it feels like home. I mean, it feels like I never left. Vegas is very reminiscent of Hawaii. Like there's a lot of like, peeps out there that like are like local heads, like from Hawaii, you know what I mean? So like, it didn't feel like I left. And, I consider 9th Island my home now. So, feels good. I think definitely Vegas has kind of pushed and brought a fire to that momentum and drive that I've had, you know what I mean? I've always had that passion of music and always wanted to like push music, but not as quick and like, I guess like at a rapid pace, like frequency of how I'm dropping stuff. Like, let it be known, like, I mean, like I'll be making albums and like one album would take me a year sometimes, you know what I mean? Now it's like in 1 month it'll be a project, you know what I mean? The next month it'll be a project. And I think it's contributed to like, you know, 10S and the crew, you know what I mean? Like Worldwide Connection that kind of pushed me in that sense. Yeah, not necessarily like 10S or like some of the guys that work with Worldwide Connection are like all MCs, but as far as creatives, like, you know, we all have that same, you know, mentality, you know what I mean? The same drive. Like, I don't do for money, you know what I mean? I do this stuff for love, you know what I mean? This is love, passion, you know what I mean? And that's what drives me. And I think Vegas has ignited like that fire in me to push this much of music. I've worked with like a bunch of like, you know, plethora of artists that like have very diverse styles. So like I can name a few, and I'm sorry if I don't mention all of them, but like Zao is a good example, you know what I mean? PJ, Tupaz, you know what I mean? Like very different style of like artists that, you know, what they push out, but it works well, you know what I mean? And I think what we're doing in Vegas is like something groundbreaking, you know? I'm not saying that we're creating something like a whole new sound, but it's refreshing to hear like screamo, hip hop sound combined with boom bap, lo-fi, underground style combined, you know what I mean? And you got like Zao, for example, like very dope singer, you know what I mean? And like he's super complimented that track Smile, for example, you know what I mean? And fit it with a lo-fi, you know, like beat. So I think all the projects, you know, and there's so much that's dropping and I can't even count, but 2022 is going to be definitely a year like where push the envelope of like what like dope, like, you know, Filipino American hip hop music is supposed to be, you know what I mean? And it's always been there, but I think we can take it up a notch, you know what I mean? Up a echelon, you know what I mean? So yeah. I think like with Filipino events, like it's like what it is, you know what I mean? It's a full-fledged Filipino event. So a lot of it is not just hip hop. It's a mesh of R&B, there's pop, there's even like other artists or dancers with it. And, you know, I'm definitely supportive of like those type of events, you know. Definitely like, you know, some like, you know, challenges too, because like it's like the kind of music that I bring is like super hard, or it's not the type of hip hop that they're used to. Maybe it's like something that's not on the radio. It definitely pushes me to kind of connect with some of these artists and, you know, learn that, you know, this type of sound is what's, you know, connecting with a lot of the Filipino Americans or just Filipino people in general. So, I mean, that's the difference. And with regular like American like events, it's just hip hop music. They don't see Filipino American hip hop artists. It's literally like he's a hip hop artist, he's an MC, you know what I mean? Because the lineup is just gonna be straight up like hip hop in general. So, but yeah, I like both worlds, you know what I mean? You know, done shows in the Philippines, very receptive, you know? Plan to go back, you know? But yeah, like I wanna do like way more in 2022. So like when I toured with like Bamboo and Gio, the experience was very humbling, you know, being able to like hear or like be around Filipino American hip hop artists that have been in the game and been doing it so well, and kind of learning from that, you know, like whether it be like show etiquette or, you know, whether it be like the proper sound checks, or when you're in the studio, you want to bang it out like super quick, you know what I mean? Like, or, you know, be very critical of your, you know, rhymes. You don't just half it, you know? So I learned a lot from them. And then I've toured with other, you know, artists that are non-Filipino Americans, but like definitely opened my eyes to like what you have to do, like to present yourself as like a prestigious like hip hop artist in the game, you know what I mean? So yeah, like I've been inspired by Nas. Atmosphere was one of my favorite, like, you know, MCs and artists.
Well, true indeed, pass it off from Creed, and it comes over to me, so through this mic I bleed. But wait a second, can't bleed through it, it's a cordless. So of course this kid represents the orphanage. Let me do my thing up inside of this room, all I wanna do is consume. I won't suck like a vacuum, I rock from July to June. Make some hands, put your noise weight, go ahead, dude.
When it comes to Filipino artists, like I've been inspired by like Bruno Mars, llmind, Bamboo, Gio, Ruby Ibarra, Rocky Rivera, like all those artists have inspired me in some point, and shaped me in some sense. So like I definitely give props and praises to all that, that kind of had a little contribution to my growth. So whether they don't think it, or they do think it, they definitely had a part of my growth as a Filipino hip hop artist. I think for me, to be quite candid, I suffered a lot of hardships through the music, whether it be, cause to be quite honest, it's it looks all good on video and photos, but it's a lot of time, money be put in, and sometimes you tend to go through this vicious cycle that you end up being depressed, and at one point substance abuse. So definitely that was definitely my lows, but I always reverted back to music because music was always that medium, or I guess my form of meditation to just kind of slip away from all those mental obstacles, but definitely I've hit my lows. But I think that's just life in general, you know what I mean? I think everybody goes through it, but music is definitely a different beast, it's not for the faint of heart. I think a lot of it was just the support of family and friends. It's embarrassing for me to say this, but I've had points where people were trying to find me just cause I would just hide in a shell or be in my room, don't contact nobody, turn off my phone. But friends, family that kind of who loved and supported me, showed me there's a better route than what you're taking and whatnot. But definitely what I gotta say is you gotta have that inner drive in yourself, you know what I mean? Yeah, I hit my dumps and whatnot, but it definitely had there was that fire. It was just not igniting, and it needed to crack, and music in general was one of those things, you know what I mean? An example, COVID, man. Everybody was hitting the dumps and being depressed because they couldn't go out, but making so much music in 1 year, definitely drove me to get out of this hump and find this new passion almost. Even though I've been doing it for 2 decades, it's it's this whole new passion now, you know what I mean? And can't explain it. It almost feels youthful in a way. So, but yeah, definitely music, as corny as it seems, saved my life. I think the biggest thing is just for young Filipino hip hop artists, just be a sponge, soak up as much knowledge from the the veteran cats, and don't ever hesitate to fall. You can fall, you can trip, you can slip, but learn from those mistakes because it only makes you stronger. And believe me, I've done that before. I've won battles, but I lost a lot. But you know what I mean? That's how life is. So I think the biggest, tip is just to, take the feedback because you need that. You can find me on all digital music, media. So Apple Music, Spotify, Creed Chameleon, Balisang 29. I got a bunch of projects out there. I got SoundCloud. I got IG, so you can check that out. Facebook and all that good stuff. But yeah.
Golden Era District.